Hey everybody, welcome to the FN Studios. This is Fight News Now. I'm your host, John Ramdeen, alongside my buddy, Robin Black. And he has been one of the biggest names in mixed martial arts, kind of on the underground for the last decade and a half or so. Fedor Emelianenko, of course, there's been teases about him going to the Ultimate Fighting Championship. We're going to get a chance to see him on Friday on Fight Pass as he takes on Fabio Maldonado. And I know there's a lot of speculation out there that will Fedor finally sign with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. It's been teased for years and years, but we're seeing more of Fedor on UFC.com and Fight Pass. Do you think this is a reality?
I would normally say this is wolf tickets because it's
The
been
Fedor
wolf
hater?
tickets, wolf tickets, wolf tickets, it's almost going to happen, folks. Oh, damn, it didn't happen. Oh, it's really happening this time. No, it didn't happen. But this one is different. This might not be wolf tickets. This could be the actual wolf because once the UFC starts releasing things, it's like free fight, Fedor versus Arlovsky. They never did that before. So it's not just that Fedor saying this could happen, it's that some of the actions being taken by the corporation are ones that would imply that they're doing it. So it might not be wolf tickets this time, but it might be wolf tickets.
But when you look at it, Robin, the UFC, clearly the goal is to give the fans what they want to see, try to create the biggest personalities in the sport in order to sell pay-per-views. And I think Fedor is one of those names, one of the elusive names in mixed martial arts that's kind of a must-have if you're the world's biggest organization because he has international appeal. I've talked to fighters from all over the world and training partners and fans and coaches, and they all love Fedor. They love him because of his timing, because of his stoic approach to the game. There's so many reasons. And then you see him there getting tapped out by Fabrizio Verdum. So many stories in mixed martial arts attached to Fedor Emelianenko.
You summed it up very nicely. His demeanor and the way he expresses himself, and by that I mean doesn't express himself almost at all when he goes into fight, is fascinating, and it is the kind of thing that does capture your imagination. But the one specific tool that he has, you can't deny how brilliant he is, and you can bring it down to one thing, and that is the timing on that right hand.
Yeah.
As good as anybody has ever timed a power shot with the right hand ever in fighting, in the sports of fighting, Fedor is among the best at it. And just that skill, or those two things together, calmness, ability to go in there, relax. Timing requires patience. And so you add the calm nature and the patience to that beautiful timing, and you get some wonderful, wonderful moments from Fedor.
He has the assignment of Fabio Maldonado, and Maldonado believes that it's going to be a very tough night for both guys. Clearly, if Fedor Emelianenko wants to get himself into the Ultimate Fighting Championship, he has to look good against Fabio Maldonado. Do you expect him to look good?
I do. Fedor isn't the mythological Fedor from before. That guy just didn't lose. And then Fedor, Dan Henderson gets up under the armpit with a beautiful shot and puts him down. And Verdum submits him. And, he is not the same myth, but he is still magical. And Maldonado will kind of move into that range where it's like, hey, let's have a boxing match. And Fedor doesn't need to do that. Fedor can move his feet, turn Maldonado, and make him wait for the moment where the chin turns towards him and just line him up. I expect Fedor to look real good.
I think one of the great things about Fedor is the fact that, a lot of people consider him to be the greatest of all time, one of the greatest of all time. And the reason why I think he is one of the greatest of all time is because of everything we've seen him do inside of the ring or the cage. We've seen him lose. He never said he was the greatest of all time. His goal was to go and be a mixed martial arts fighter, to provide for his family and to provide for the people of Russia and his fans. I think the biggest thing you take away from Fedor is during those losses, because that's what happens in the sport of mixed martial arts. You got to dust yourself off and get right back into the fire, and we've seen that with the Bigfoot Silva loss, the fight with Dan Henderson, Fabrizio Verdum, the whole undefeated thing. And again, it's not as if he was undefeated. He has a loss earlier in his career. Of course, he avenged that loss, but I think it was just like George St-Pierre. You avenged your losses to Matt Serra and Matt Hughes. People consider you to be an undefeated fighter, so to speak.
So to speak. Over time, I've grown to appreciate Fedor more all the time. And it's been the study of the psychology of fighting. And it's been a study of how incredibly hard it is to be special on game day against another guy who's one of the best fighters in the world. That ability to do that, and it wasn't that Fedor had every skill in the book. He wasn't like these full, complete fighters capable of doing everything, but what he could do is when he showed up in the 99th percentile, and that is very, very rare, and that is very, very special. And I've grown to appreciate Fedor more every single time you uncover a rock and realize how challenging that thing is. And then you add to it that the timing on that right hand, the ability to land that power shot in real time relies on that mental ability to show up, and Fedor does start to become all the more special.
The former Pride heavyweight champion will be in action this Friday. We go from the former Pride champion to the current UFC middleweight champion. Michael Bisping has put it out into the world that he would like a fight with George St-Pierre, and you and I have a couple of close friends in this business that have confirmed that is in fact the truth. Both Michael Bisping's camp and George St-Pierre's camp are very interested in making this fight.
Yes. Now, Mike said publicly that he would like that fight, but we have heard privately that George is already pursuing that fight. And so, think about it. I mean, it's Michael Bisping a couple of months ago was that British guy. Now, who always shows up in fights and is always in exciting fights and is a really cool fighter. Now he's that British guy who's always in exciting fights and always shows up and performs well, who beat Anderson Silva and is the UFC middleweight champion. Where do you go from there?
Yeah.
You want to go fight the Jacares and the Yoel Romeros as you're closing in on 40? Or do you want to go from being one of the highest paid fighters to the highest paid fighter? Fight George St-Pierre. And it makes sense for George. George is not looking to fight these young guys either. He's not looking to fight the up-and-comers. He's looking to fight names that make him money. The big challenge with Bisping is his incredibly solid and near-perfect fundamentals and his size and his tenacity. It's a very hard fight for George St-Pierre, but of course George St-Pierre is a very hard fight for anybody.
And again, if you remember years ago, the fight that people were teasing was George St-Pierre moving up to 185 pounds to challenge at the time the pound-for-pound great and Anderson Silva. So it was an idea that's been in his mind for such a long time. Now, well into his 30s, if any fight makes sense for George St-Pierre to return to, it's this middleweight title fight with Michael Bisping.
Yeah, for sure. And now bear in mind, what we're saying is that George is apparently interested in the fight and discussing the possibilities of how to make it. That doesn't mean this fight exists.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean the UFC is making this fight. But when Bisping is saying, this is a fight I want, and George is starting the process of pursuing a fight that he wants, in all logic, the UFC, you know what kind of fights they like?
Those
fights that people want to see.
Exactly.
Fights that sell pay-per-views, and this will be one of those.
Of course, and George St-Pierre's teammate, Rory MacDonald, will be in action this Saturday night, UFC Fight Night. Rory MacDonald, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, a sensational show. What do you expect? Just overall, we're heading to Ottawa, of course, Patrick Cote and Donald Cerrone, but this is one of those shows that you hope the Canadians shine in the nation's capital.
You do. As Canadians, as the Canadian, one of the broadcast partners, we get excited to go see the guys we know. We go see Pat fight.
Yeah.
You get excited about that. But the reality is fights are fights are fights. And this fight is about where you are in space and where your weapons are in space in conjunction to the other man. And Wonderboy Thompson is incredibly good at putting his jaw and his temples in space in a place that is very hard for you to hit, and putting his knuckles and his feet on you when you're in a place that he can hit. That's what he specializes in. So this is a very, very hard fight for Rory, but Rory is an animal and a machine. At
the TriStar Gym, there's John McDessie, a karateka, Chad Laprise. He was training with Raymond Daniels, so I think Rory MacDonald probably has a good read on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Like I said, we are going to be in Ottawa all week long leading into UFC Fight Night. Keep it locked to FN for the best coverage in the sport. It is Rory MacDonald and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in your main event.